Hi, my name is Zoe, and you're listening to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. And I'm back in a visual form this week. Last week was so busy for me, so I did the audio version, and it was just more convenient for me that week. But also, it was kind of a test to see if anyone would kind of have an opinion about that. Because I was thinking earlier if I should do these like episodic um, episodes just with an audio form. And then when I have a guest over, I should do the video version. But I think people prefer the video version. So I'll just keep doing them if I'm able to. I actually got a feedback about this from Story Chemist. Love your podcast. I didn't realize that you being on screen was an important factor in me watching your podcast. But after just the audio version last week, I've concluded you on the screen adds value I didn't appreciate. So I guess you appreciate the video form, so I'll just keep doing it. As for the episode, I'll just get my thoughts out of the way first. Seeing Logan's dad was interesting because we don't really know much about him or his family situation. So seeing more of where he comes from and what kind of relationship he has with his father was interesting. It was kind of similar to what we've seen in the past. So I had my like expectations about that. It was more low-key than I thought it would be. Like I just waited for something bad to happen, like some sort of traumatic twist or his dad just being a really horrible person. But it turned out that he was actually pretty okay. Like he must have just been in a desperate situation and then, he ended up in jail. Because when Logan expressed discomfort about some things, his dad took his time to think things through and come up with a plan that would benefit both him and Logan. But then in the end, he put Logan's wants and needs before his and came to a conclusion that even though they would live far away from each other, they can still have a relationship and they can still sort of repair what's been broken. Throughout the episode, I just kept waiting, like, okay, so when is this gonna turn ugly? And it never did. But it's a nice change of pace for once, because of course there's always like tensions and difficult emotions when it comes to parents and children. But I think this was something that we haven't necessarily seen before, so I appreciated that. But it definitely showed me that Heartland is part of the reason why I have trust issues, because I couldn't trust that it would end up going well, which is ironic for a show that's pretty wholesome and usually has happy endings. So I don't know what's going on with that. As for Lindy's storyline, I'm not a big fan of barrel racing. I'm always just like kind of uncomfortable about what's going on with the horse. Like, I'm sure the experts would argue with this, but I just feel like it's just one little step away from the horse getting hurt. So I'm not a big fan of that. But I think when it comes to the story, it's interesting that Lindy is interested in barrel racing of all the things. But then it shows that she's her own character. Like we have Amy who does Liberty a lot. They've done that with Lindy. And Lindy enjoys that, but their thing together, not her thing as alone. Then we have Georgie, who's done a lot of jumping. Not sure if Lindy really has memories of those moments, but anyway. And then Jade with the prank writing. Pretty sure Lindy has not seen any of that, but you can kind of imagine that she knows what that is. And then the usual rodeo stuff with Tim and Jack and all that. So it's kind of nice that we have this discipline, even though it's not for me. But, I enjoy seeing Lindy growing up and having her own things. And I think at that age, you're kind of fearless in some things. So it makes sense that she would have this kind of like drive to go fast. I also really like the scenes with Lindy and Tim, not necessarily the ones where he sort of pushed her too much, but I'm talking about the bedtime story and then the ending where Tim apologizes Lindy and they have that ride side by side, and Tim's just describing like how Lindy is just a blur of blonde curls. I don't know. It's just so adorable. Lindy was extra cute in this episode. Cannot not love that. So yeah. As for Jack and Lisa, I don't know if the storyline really offered us anything new. But it definitely gave another chance for Jessica Steen to show her acting chops because she's just incredible. As soon as she entered the episode, she was like trembling and crying and just her breath being like all worried. And it just, she really embodies what she's given through the script. I'm just sitting here like admiring everything she does, even though it's not necessarily story-wise that different from what we've seen before, but she always brings this newness to it, which is very appreciated, seeing that she's been on this show for 16 years now. So it's never a dull moment with her. And I did like that she had scenes with Bay, aka Katie, because Lisa's her godmother, so they used to do more things together, but now it's kind of like that's being forgotten, which I guess that happens when the kid grows up, but I still like when they remember where these characters came from. When it comes to Tim, I was so worried when I saw the preview for this episode because it was Amy yelling at him being too pushy or something like that. I was like, oh man, like we've had 7 wonderful episodes with this Tim redemption arc. Are they gonna trash it all of a sudden? Like, why? But then, it was almost like they took 2 steps back, but then 1 step forward. We saw the old Tim like pushing Amy and Lindy, but then I really liked when Amy sort of stood her ground when she was teaching Lindy with Harley. And then later on inside the house when Tim was putting Jessica's photograph book thing together, they had that talk with Amy and Tim, and he sort of expressed why he does things the way he does. And Amy was like, okay, I understand that, but you have to understand that what that means to others is not the same that it means to you. And then that callback to season 2 when Tim bought Amy Storm, and Amy really stressed about that, and it was just really awkward with Tim being so pushy. So it's nice to see that, Tim has grown in a way that he's able to take in feedback. Of course, he's not totally changed. That happens slowly, but he's slowly also getting over some of these old traits that created a lot of conflict in the past. So even though at first I was worried about what they would do with him in this episode, I think it wasn't too bad because at the end of the day, he understood what he was doing, and he didn't want to slip back to the old habits. And we saw a little bit of that with Jessica. One of the reasons I love Jessica is that she's able to say to Tim, no, like, I know what you're saying, but I don't want to hear it. Like, leave me be. Like, I just need my space. And I just love that their relationship is mature enough for them both to kind of say what they want to say, and it's never turned into this like petty relationship trauma. It's just how relationship works, and the highs and the lows, and at the end of the day they really love each other, and they try to come together, meet each other in the middle, and sometimes even grow from those experiences. So I'm just really loving Tim and Jessica. Like, what a fun, mature couple. And I really enjoy watching Michelle and Chris act together. Like, they just have this like rhythm, and the way they show the connection between Jessica and Tim, it's just like really makes you believe that these characters are really married and in love and know each other well and are willing to work hard for their relationship. So I really love that. And especially given that they met in season 14 and now we're on to season 16. So this has been like a couple of years. But I think, at that age, you sort of know yourself enough to establish things in your relationship. Enough about me gushing about them. Overall, I think this episode was pretty solid. It was classic Heartland. I was entertained. I loved to see all the characters together, and I just totally realized that I forgot to talk about Lou and Katie. I was expecting that there might be some kind of big explosion with them, and we saw something with them, but I felt like maybe the whole thing wasn't resolved. Like, I expected Lou to kind of be like, I understand her being mad at me not going to get her ears pierced. But what was that like Georgie thing about? Like, where did that come from? I expected her to kind of get tangled in those lines and go back to Katie, like, okay, we need to talk about this. Like, what's going on with you? But it didn't happen. So I'm hoping that it'll happen later on, because if this is it, it was pretty disappointing after all that building up until this point. So I'm thinking there's still some things to come, but yeah, we'll see. Then on to your comments. This one is from Heartland Lisa PFC. Another reminiscing moment of Caleb talking about when Amy wrote The Barrel. There has been lots of references to past storylines slash characters this season, which I actually quite like, as it's like real life when memories of past times come up. Logan's dad turning up initially felt like people were going to compare it to Ty's dad showing up, but the main difference here was that Greg actually did feel like he wanted to make a connection with his son and want the best for him in the long run. The scene at the end where they looked at each other was like his dad truly got this was what was best for Logan, and he looked proud of him too. It did feel like the storyline was resolved quite quick, but I guess there is always scope for his dad to return for future stories. However, isn't it always amazing that the Dude Ranch is a thriving business, but as soon as someone comes to Heartland, then there is nearly always a cabin free for them. Right, and it's always the same cabin. Like, what's with that cabin? Why is no one getting that? Because I would think that's actually the best cabin to have, because you have the view to the dock. Anyways, then they continue. Lisa's emotional scene over Platinum Bow was really heartfelt and a nice scene, even though it was sad to see her upset. There was some really good scenes with Jack and Lisa, again as a couple, talking and supporting each other. Jack reassuring Lisa and being just as happy for her when the news came through that it wasn't a serious injury. His worry over Platinum Bow does seem to be making Lisa question the stress of it all, and if she needs that level of stress and worry anymore. Lindy wanting to barrel race, I actually like. Amy wasn't really a barrel racer, so it feels like it's connected to Amy with the horses, but also different too. Jack almost bitten his coffee out overhearing Amy was going to teach Caleb too did make me laugh. Tim wanting to be involved with this was good. It was interesting that after Tim went overboard with the paddle horse, that he listened to what Amy said and changed direction. This is another sign of the big character growth we've seen in Tim. Then seeing him with Lindy at the rodeo grounds and also doing the bedtime story showed how close he actually is to Lindy. We don't see enough grandfather and granddaughter scenes with them. I agree. The ear piercing story, though, I didn't see the point of. Katie is more than old enough to want her ears pierced, and it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But who pierced the mayor's daughter's ears without parental consent? I get it was to cause tension between Katie and Lou, but I just think something better than ear piercing could have been used. Tim trying to push Jessica was typical Tim, caring but pushing too much. However, the talk with Amy over Lindy seemed to make him realize that was the same as what he was doing with Jessica too. Typical Tim, though, adding many pics of himself into that portfolio. He casually gave them to her and left her to it, remembering what Amy has said about being overbearing. Easing off worked, though, and helped Jessica realize that she could do this and did. Finally, Jessica getting that contract and showing everyone what photo sealed the deal really pulled all the heartstrings again. Any mention of Finn tugs at the heart and brings out the sadness. However, what this scene showed to me was Amy showing signs of wanting to let someone in. The way she looked at this photo of her and Finn pulled at her own heartstrings and made her check in with him. Seeing the change on her face when Finn texts back was something that sticks with me. It was like that feeling of butterflies when someone you like makes contact with you. That was the moment that it became evident Amy is ready to try something new. It made me go back to the song from season 8 with the lyrics, "You only know you love her when you let her go." This was what was happening here for me. Amy letting Finn go was building to her really missing him and realizing just how she feels. Now, I'm not saying love, but definitely more than platonic feelings from her for him. Overall, a decent episode, not my favorite, but it had its moments, and I'm now looking forward to what next week's episode brings. Yeah, I was like waiting for something to happen with like Amy and Finn kissed in the previous episode. So I was like, okay, so is something going to be different? But then Amy was, back to her usual self. There was no mention of anything like that, or her even being like, kind of like, whoa, like, what happened? Like, nothing like that. So I was kind of weirded about that. But then when they were in the kitchen and Jessica said, like, oh, this photo was the one that sealed the deal, I was like, oh, it's a photo because they've been using that photo to build this up in many occasions. So it was like, it finally pays off. And I just love that the scene was so subtle. Everyone else was excited about Lindy barrel racing, and Amy just looking at the photo, lost in thought. And then when everyone else had left the house, she pulled out her phone and texted Finn. And then when she got a text back, it was like, oh my gosh, like, just love those kind of little moments where you don't have to say much, but you know exactly what's going on. Then a comment from No Context Heartland. Kind of felt like a filler episode in some ways, but there were some really cute moments. Lou and Katie's last scene, Lindy and Tim towards the end, Jessica and all the things, Caleb attempting to do math. I mean, I related so much. I loved getting to see Katie and Lisa interact. Logan's storyline with his dad felt a little underwhelming. It'll be interesting to see whether he comes back to visit and so on. Loved the whole family watching Lindy at the end. It was so cute and soft. Then Stephanie said, Logan and his dad. I felt a little underwhelmed with that storyline, but I thought it was good for the character to try and repair that father-son relationship. Hopefully, they will keep in touch. I'm glad Logan is sticking around since he really does belong at Heartland working with Amy. Also, I just need to say this. I seriously hope the writers are not hinting at having Logan and Katie be an item. I cannot express this enough. She's 12 and he's 18. If it's a matter of her having a crush on him, fine. But I beg of the writers to keep them as friends, please. Yeah, I very much agree. I think we all know that by now, but just enforcing that. Tim telling Lindy bedtime stories was adorable. I love seeing the softer side of that character and the way he interacts with his granddaughter. I do have to say, don't love how pushy Tim was with Lindy, writing a more experienced horse while she was still learning how to battle race. I know his heart is in the right place and just wants Lindy to be successful, but he definitely needs to learn how to balance that competitive side slash excitement and know that learning a new skill takes time. Not everyone can be great at something right away. It did make me wonder, because we've seen this pattern with Tim over and over again. What kind of upbringing did Tim have? Were his parents, or maybe one of his parents, really pushy? So that's the only way he kind of knows how to show support and care, because that's what he takes as support and care, because that's the only thing he knows. But we don't know much about Tim's side of the family. But I would really like to know, because I think there has to be something like that going on, right? And then they continued. I'm really glad in the end Amy and Tim had that chat. I hope it really sticks and he tries hard to not overstep. That was a long time coming, especially since in the past he's been known to be overbearing with that sort of thing. I love how it came full circle in the end with Tim apologizing to Lindy for putting her on too fast of a horse, and help gave her some of her confidence back by walking her slowly around the arena to help her get over that fear. LOL, Katie Cohen hipster. I thought it was like such a silly, stupid line. Like, I don't know, like, I can see that this is you writing. Like, this is no longer what kids would say these days, but I still found it hilarious. Not Katie disrespecting Lou like that. Yes, Katie's feelings are valid, but going off on her mom like that is not okay. The hug in the end was nice though. Love Lou saying that she hasn't decided if Katie is grounded yet or not. I was thinking, like, it's kind of unfair to compare Georgie having an accident to Katie getting her ears pierced and other stuff that she's been going through. But isn't that just the thing that teenagers do, though? Like, everything is so dramatic and you grasp at every straw that you can get to have that, like, upper hand with someone you're fighting with. From an adult perspective, it's like, okay, come on, like, take it down a notch. But then when you're a teenager, like, you're like, oh yeah, I get that. And then they continued. Finally, Amy seeing the photo of her and Finn. That really pulled at my heartstrings. And her messaging him and that smile after made me feel mixed emotions. Overall, the episode was pretty good. Not really one of my favorites. Looking forward to next week. Then Selden said, I love Tim, Lindy. Love Tim so much these days. And then they continued. At the end, when Amy looked at the picture of her and Finn and smiled, my first thought was, she is falling in love. Ah, oh, so cute. And right after that came the, oh no, when I remembered again why it won't happen. I guess this will last until we see how the writers have solved this. Yeah. Then Sharon commented, I feel that this episode is setting up for future episodes. Lindy doing barrel racing was adorable. She looks so cute. Amy finally, after 14 years, telling Tim off for pushing and putting on unrealistic pressure on a 6-year-old. Looks like Lisa could be at the ranch more and not being so involved in her business, just how Jack wanted. Katie obviously learned how to be disrespectful towards Lou from Georgie. Katie's jealousy of Georgie and the time Lou spent with her was selfish, but Lou is spreading herself too thin. I feel so sorry for Lou. It doesn't matter what she does, it's never right by her family's thinking. How about they give her some reassurance? Lou seems to be the only one who apologizes. Katie didn't apologize for how she spoke to her mother, but in true Heartland fashion, everything was okay in the end. I can understand Logan's feelings for his dad, but again, it worked out. Hopefully, his dad comes back to visit. Amy in the photo and her reaction. They say a picture says 1,000 words. Certainly true in this case. Next week looks interesting, but not liking Lou and Rick fighting. Keep up the great work with your podcast. It's the only time I can talk to someone about Heartland, and you do such a great job. Thank you for saying that, and I'm so happy if this is your outlet because I really enjoy your comments and just talking about the show, so works for both of us. Then a comment from the story chemist. Tim this season has been amazing to watch. While he has his flaws, but when pointed out, he has been willing to see how his actions affect others and has tried to remedy it. That scene with him doing voices at Lindy's bedtime was amazing. Such a heartwarming scene. Tim with Logan's dad as well was so honest. It was great to see him own up to his mistakes and not hide them, and the only character that says sorry, by the way. I thought it was once again an opportunity for Tim to collect these broken guys and let them know, like, don't do what I did, do as I tell, if that's the right expression. But what I mean by that is that he really knows what these guys are going through. He really wants them to reach the happiness that he now has sooner than he did. He's like this rehab center for fathers and guys done a lot of mistakes or something like that. And then they continued, I'm so glad that Lisa has been able to be outside the studio for scenes. Makes her feel like she actually is part of the family and not a hostage that is ranch bound. Lisa is used to high stakes clients and the pressure that comes with it, so I'm not a fan of the storyline making her feel overwhelmed and wanting out of it. Doesn't fit with Lisa's character, in my humble opinion. The next sentence, I'm not sure what you mean, but this is exactly how it reads. Amy made such an amazing actress. I'm just glad she has screen time in the outdoors. I wish they could give us more about her family and how she grew up. Yeah, I agree with that. We need a Tim background episode and Lisa background episode. Writers, if you're listening, take those things down. Then a comment from HL Horses. Decent episode. Nothing overly bad or good. Just all around fine. Lindy wanting to barrel race was cute. Not gonna lie, but when I first saw Sherry Wild, I thought it was Mrs. Bell for a hot second. Anyway, I did really like Sherry. I thought so too. I was like, whoa, 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 like Mrs. Bell is back? But then I was like, oh, it's not her, but who is this? Like, I really liked her as well. Like, she was very feisty and badass. Both Amy and Jack's reaction to Caleb wanting to para race was hilarious. I also liked how Tim was involved in this storyline as well. Him reading to Lindy was so adorable, as well as him leading her around the arena at the end. Amy and Tim's conversation about him being overbearing was a good one, and one they've needed to have for a long time. I also thought it was cute that Amy called Lindy Little Miss. Also love a good throwback mention of Storm. And just a side note, but Tim and Caleb's relationship just cracks me up. I mean, Tim's line at the end about letting Caleb have his moment was gold. Yeah, I also really find their relationship funny because Caleb adores Tim. Like, even in this episode where when Tim was like, not a word, Caleb was like, okay, fine, like, I'm not saying anything. And then, when Caleb was trying to do the math in his head, Tim was like, let me just cut to the chase and say it's not enough. And then, Caleb going around and Tim being like, let us have this moment. Yeah. The ending power racing scene with Sherry was really cool. Not much to say about the Tim and Jessica storyline except that they are cute and really supportive of each other. It's also funny how Tim said he picked out the best ones and the most were off him. Classic Tim. I did like Logan and his dad. They had some good moments. I did love the conversation Tim and Gret had at the end and how they went through similar experiences. And he mentioned Shane again, which is good. Heartland has a tendency to construct things to one episode, so glad that they are still mentioning Shane. As always, Jack and Lisa are great. Love the continuity with Platinum Bow. I mean, that hug at the beginning with her crying was so sweet. There was also Lisa in the Dude Ranch mention, which we never get. I can't remember if she still had a stake in that or not. And Lisa's out of the kitchen. Finally, that sort of hug they have when watching Lindy at the end was adorable and could be an opening credits scene. I agree. Then they continued. Katie asking Lisa to go with her to get her ears pierced was nice because it shows they actually do have a relationship like they are supposed to, since Lisa is her godmother besides being her great grandma. We hardly get those scenes anymore, so nice to see how many they got this episode. Lou and Katie's fight was so intense, and that line Katie had about Lou not being around to enforce her being grounded was a great line. And then finally, Amy being sad at the picture was heartbreaking. Was not expecting that picture to show up this week, so I was surprised. All in all, a solid episode. Can't wait for next week. Yeah, that line about Katie being, you better tell the others because you're not here to enforce that. I was like, whoa, like that's pretty intense. But at the same time, there was some truth to it, probably. Then a comment from Chris Tim Heartland. Overall, I enjoyed the episode. Finally, we've had a scene with Tim and Lindy, and how cute was the bedtime story scene. Also loved how Tim got down on one knee to apologize to Lindy. I think it's important to be eye level when discussing important matters with children. And when Tim led Lindy around the arena was just something special for me. He still has his moments when he's back to his old ways, but that's what makes him more believable. Loved Jessica's story and her fear of another failure after New York. Also loved how supporting Tim was and how he knew what a huge opportunity this gig would be for her. Absolutely loved their last scene in the loft when she grabbed his arm and kissed him. I need more scenes like that. And when Jessica pointed out that he chose one too many of this handsome cowboy, and Tim replied, well, yeah, was the cutest. Tim shows tremendous character growth lately. Love seeing that. To be honest, I was not that invested in the Logan and his dad's reunion. It wasn't emotional or anything special to me. It was just meh. Katie, typical teenager, goes behind her mom's back and even lies to Lisa to get what she wants. Lou trying to catch up on work and maybe overcompensate for being away for so long does not bode well with Katie. I don't like what the writers are doing with Lou's character so far, Lou being one of my favorites. Broke my heart to see Lisa in tears. I love seeing her more on the ranch, but I really hope she won't give up on her career and business. As far as I'm concerned, she's the one making all the sacrifices, and I would love to see Jack being more supportive of her career, like Tim was with Jessica in New York. Lindy was adorable, as always, and loved how proud she was showing off in front of the family. Love seeing Amy smile after texting Finn. That photo Jessica snapped of them is getting a storyline of its own. Love it. I feel the Finn and Amy storyline is not over just yet, despite the unfortunate event of Robert's passing. Seeing the description of the upcoming episodes, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the drama the episodes bring. I love drama. What a shocker. Then Diane said, this is the season of Katie's discontent, and it looks like to me it may take to the end of the season to resolve her issues. They are delving deeper into Katie's personality, and I am glad that they are taking their time and showcasing base talents. I have always found Katie to be unafraid to speak her mind, like her mom, and enjoyed her gentle teasing of Lou and what it said about their relationship. However, she has never been combative before. Katie has some legitimate complaints, but there must be more to this than my overworked mother is not paying attention to me. Her references to Georgie make me wonder if her challenging personality trait may be jealousy. She can't possibly equate Lou dropping everything when her sister was seriously injured to Lou taking her to have her ears pierced. I recall that Katie had some difficulty at first sharing the family's attention with Luke in season 12. I do not expect this to get resolved until Georgie comes home and gets involved. Then finally, a comment from MC Loves Heartland. I enjoyed the episode. It definitely wasn't the best of the season, but I enjoyed it. I love the scenes with Lindy learning to parallel race. It was so cute. The twins do such a good job. The scene with Tim telling Lindy a story was super cute as well. I was expecting a little bit more from the storyline with Logan's dad. It did keep me on my toes in the way that I was worried that we'd never see Logan again. I liked Jessica's storyline. It was done really naturally, especially after a discouragement like that. I'm so glad Tim pushed her to take that offer. I think Lou and Katie are both at fault in that storyline. Katie probably more so. I didn't appreciate how Lou wasn't paying attention to Katie's want to get her ears pierced and how she didn't keep her promise. But Katie shouldn't have gone behind her back and lied to Lisa. I do hope that Lou punishes Katie because it would be weird if she doesn't. That hug was cute though. Caleb made me laugh when he was running around excited. He's so funny. Thanks for all the comments, and the fun doesn't stop here. Tomorrow we have a new episode to watch. It's episode 9, and we're heading toward the mid-season finale, which is episode 10. But before we get there, we have episode 9 called True Colors, New Tricks. The description for the episode says, Amy leads an overnight trail ride to help with Jessica's new photography job. On the ride, Amy and Jack have a disagreement about Finn. Lou's latest mayoral event upsets Rick. Sounds like a dramatic episode, and isn't that kind of what we love? So, again, I'll see you here next week. Until then, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. Bye.